What's going on, Red Nation? Getting closer to the 2025-2026 season. This is Rockets Daily. My name is David Delano. Go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Help us keep growing. We've been talking a lot about Şengün, been talking a lot about the Euro basket, but we're going to take a little bit of a break from that now. And does have a big matchup against Giannis in Greece on Friday. And we'll definitely be touching on that matchup afterwards. But we'll talk about this Rockets roster as far as right now. I know that roster seems to be set. We'll see what happens going into training camp. I know throughout the season, you know that the roster is not going to be exactly the same. A lot of talented players out there, a lot of talented young players, a lot of talented veterans, some names that you may not even realize who are out there. Anybody that you would like to see the Rockets add, we're going to talk about some of those names. And there's going to be some names that I want to talk about that I haven't really seen being discussed too many places. So go ahead and stay tuned here and go ahead and subscribe if you have not already. So first thing we're going to talk about is some veteran guards out here on the market. And as we look even at the back end of the Rockets roster to see some of the guys that may have to part ways with, as far as if there's somebody on the market that could potentially make a bigger impact, it's going to be interesting. Talked about JV Davidson a bit here a little bit of a while ago. For those of you guys who are not familiar with him, spent 3 years in the Boston Celtics organization. Didn't get to play a whole lot. Only 22 years old, guard. Very prolific scorer at the G League level. Was a 5-star recruit out of high school. Went to the University of Alabama. Left after his freshman year. Just hasn't quite found his way yet. But on this Rockets roster, only 22 years old. Jae'Sean Tate's now 29 years old, 6'4", a little bit of an undersized forward, but someone that happy to see around now. Been here now throughout the bad times through the rebuild. This is going to be a 6th season with the Rockets, but double-digit scores first 2 seasons as this team has gotten better. Tate's minutes and Tate's role has gone down each year he's been in the NBA. So you kind of wonder, as far as obviously somebody who's been with the organization, high character guy, a guy that you like to see around, but how much of an impact will he make? Aaron Holiday, somebody who I personally love on this roster. Not someone who gets a whole lot of attention, but I think that he is a good fit. But really overall, let's talk about some of these veteran guards. There's still a lot of guys that we've talked about that haven't been signed. And we were talking about them a couple months ago, and those guys are still out there. Al Horford, not a guard, a center, is actually still out there, wondering if he's going to retire or not. Not someone that I see coming to the Rockets. Did want to mention, though, that his name is still floating around, possibly to the Golden State Warriors. And when you hear things like that, a lot of these names are more so, they could even go to guys and potentially hurt the Rockets as much as joining. But going on to some of these different guards, any of these guys that you possibly would be interested in. Now, Russell Westbrook, you feel like Russell Westbrook is going to land somewhere eventually at some point in the season. I don't think that it's going to be a reunion with Kevin Durant in Houston. And also, when you look at where the Rockets are and things to improve on, personally, obviously Russ is someone who's going to give his best effort each time out there. But I personally would like to see some shooting be added. And we'll see. If Reed Shepherd, especially early on in the season, got some meaningful games, got the NBA Cup, got some high-level competition, really, those first 20, 25 games, first 16 games even. And we'll see how that's looking as far as when it comes to adding shooting. Russell Westbrook, not a guy that's really. I mean, we know what he is when it comes to the 3-point shooting, but some guys not about as much, a little bit older, not as strong defensively. Alec Burks, someone I talked about before with the Miami Heat last season, shot 42.5% from 3-point range. He's still unsigned. This is a guy who 791 games in his career, shot 38.6% from 3-point range, 34 years old. Seth Curry, hasn't worked out with the no deal with the Warriors. They were wondering if he was gonna join his brother. Um, a guy that gets overlooked, man. And I understand that there are some defensive limitations. He's 35 years old, but a guy who's always really been counted out throughout his career and led the NBA in 3-point shooting last season. High character guy. Um, he's another guy out there that I personally, I don't see a lot of other people screaming it, but I think that he could help this Rockets team. Shot 45.6% from 3-point range last year and played in 68 games with the Charlotte Hornets. 10 points per game for his career. Over 86% from the free throw line from his career. 43.3% from 3-point range in 550 career games for um, Seth Curry. You got Malcolm Brogdon. Malcolm Brogdon is still out there, coming off of a poor shooting season. You wonder if that's just a little bit of an anomaly and if he can bounce back, but has not been signed yet. Then, guy we talked about earlier, no, we don't have the money to really add him at this point, even with potential moves. I know you're not going to bring Malik Beasley on this roster. He had the gambling investigation. Was supposed to sign with the Pistons. He's still out there. Malik Beasley is kind of a transition to some guys that I want to talk about who should be almost, you think you could bring them in, invite them into camp for really just the opportunity to compete. And some of these guys just seem super talented, but there's obviously got to be things going on behind the scenes. Now, this first guy, Ben Simmons, I'm bringing up Ben Simmons because Ben Simmons, when it comes to basketball, Ben Simmons is not really a name that I take serious when it comes to being added to the Rockets, being able to contribute to a team. Honestly, I don't. But it's very polarizing. There's so many guys that I talk to that still feel like Ben Simmons has something to add to the NBA. His agent just dropped him. He turned down a 1-year offer. I guess with the Knicks, he wanted more than that. But I think Ben Simmons is the guy that kind of likes to be talked about. But Ben Simmons is what Ben Simmons is. If anybody's out there that thinks that Ben Simmons could help this roster or would like Ben Simmons on this roster, feel free to chime in. But he is a name that's out there, and believe it or not, there are some people that think that he's worth a flyer. Now, a couple names, very interesting, very talented. That it's interesting that nobody signed them yet. Bobo is it's interesting with Bobo. Actually didn't actually randomly ran into him about a month ago, but it's interesting to see that Bobo is still out there, in that a guy this young hasn't been able to find his way in the NBA now. 24 years old for Bobo, or like 25 years old. The talent is there at times when he gets to play. You wonder with Udoka and this culture that we have in place, is he someone that could be a diamond in the rough, bringing in a situation maybe mid-season? We've looked at some of the different guys that the Rockets have added throughout the years. Um, Imani Bates, I don't think that he's someone that is going to come out here, but he's been talked about quite a bit. You saw like Gil's Arena, you saw Shaq. I saw a lot of people were killing the Cleveland Cavaliers for not knowing what they're doing and not playing Imani Bates and all of that. And then Imani Bates has been cut now for the Cleveland Cavaliers for a couple months, and nobody signed Imani Bates. Imani Bates got cut before Summer League, and no one added him to the roster. So is Imani Bates redeemable? Is Bo redeemable? Is Ben Simmons redeemable? NBA's weird. You got DeAnthony Melton out there. Still relatively young, hasn't been signed. There were some rumors in the offseason he could potentially be added to the Rockets. Lonnie Walker, the fourth, still young player, guy that just kind of fell off a little bit out of nowhere. Looks like he signed a 3-year deal to Tel Aviv. But yeah, any of these guys out there to you that you think will be worth a flyer for the Rockets? Maybe not at the beginning of the season, but these are all just some names to keep in mind mid-season, depending on how things go with the roster, that you could potentially see in any of those names that I mentioned that you think would be a good fit for the Rockets, or anyone that I didn't name that you think is out there that could be a good fit for the Rockets. Because one thing, we know that the roster is not going to be exactly how it is. Someone's going to be at it. Someone is going to be at it. Michael Beasley maybe had a great big three. I don't think that that's going to happen, but definitely had a great big three run. All right, let's go ahead and continue with this Rockets history. History the last couple days, we've been talking about the top 10 Rockets centers of all time. We're talking a little bit about reliving some of the Dwight Howard, Carmelo Anthony days. We were talking about even some of those battles between Shaquille O'Neal and Hakeem Olajuwon. So let's get into this 2005-2006 season, led by Jeff Van Gundy, coming off of that 51-31 year. This was a very, very disappointing year for the Rockets. Really a forgettable one, honestly. A little bit of a blur to me. 34-48 this season, which is coming off of a 51-31 year. Rockets were last in the Southwest Division that season, and this particular year, injuries played a role. Tracy McGrady limited to 47 games this season, 24.4 points per game. Yao Ming, 22.3 points per game and 10.2 rebounds. Only played 57 games. Dikembe Mutombo, played 64 games that year, more than Yao. 2.6 points per game, though, 4.8 rebounds for Mutombo. Juwan Howard saw a lot of action, 11.8 points per game. Skip to Malu. Rayford Austin, 12.1 points per game for the Rockets. Derek Anderson limited just to 20 games with Houston that year, 10.8 points per game. So really with the limited, with the injuries to Tracy McGrady and Yao Ming, this season was a bit of a mess, a bit of a forgettable mess under Jeff Van Gundy. Despite missing so many games, though, Yao Ming still made third team All-NBA. Luther Head was voted NBA All-Rookie second team that year as well. But even as much as we could talk about the injuries that year, Rockets got off to a 3-11 start, and things just never got going. Rockets beat the Sacramento Kings at home 98-89 to begin the season, and at 1-0, and that was the only time Houston had a winning record all season. So Yeah, 2005, 2006 season, one that's definitely forgettable um, in Rockets history, but it's all part of the history. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know any free agents out there or trade scenarios, anything you want to talk about, guys, that you think could potentially be with the Rockets. And also, I mean, I know it's Rockets Daily. These guys don't play for the Rockets. When we talk to Bobo, talk about Bobo or Imani Bates or any of those guys, even Lonnie Walker the fourth, we know about Ben Simmons, but any comments on why what you think it is with some of these guys as far as hey, why they're not on rosters? Thanks so much for watching Rockets Daily. Please go ahead and subscribe. We're gonna be here with you guys all season. God bless. Be safe out there on the roads.